to be careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. Careful the wish you make. Wishes are children. Careful the path they take. Wishes come true. Not free, things sweet. Careful the spell you cast. Not just on children. Sometimes the spell may last past what you can see and turn against you. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. Children will listen. Children will listen.
This is the story of how one woman profoundly shaped two essential theater companies. The story starts with an opening night, December 28th, 1959. As the brand new Dallas Theater Center prepared for its gala opening, led by the theater's legendary founding artistic director, Paul Baker, there was trouble afoot. During a technical rehearsal just days before the opening, it became clear that the lighting designer was struggling to operate the state-of-the-art lighting board created by Texas Instruments specifically for the theater's glorious new home, Frank Lloyd Wright designed Kalita Humphreys Theater. Paul Baker became frustrated. Words were exchanged. While the actors were still rehearsing on the stage, the lighting designer walked out of the theater and quit the production. For a brief moment, no one knew what to do, except for Paul Baker. He knew exactly what to do. He called out, "Baby girl," and Robyn Flatt leapt to her feet. Robyn was a senior in college. She was studying theater at Baylor University. She was on Christmas break and was sitting in this new theater observing the technical rehearsal, which was being led by her father, Paul Baker. Though young, Robyn was the perfect person to step up at a moment of crisis. She was already an accomplished lighting designer and actor, and it was clear to anyone who knew her that she had inherited the determination of her father, coupled with the artistry that she inherited from both her parents and a lifelong love of learning. The challenge of mastering a complicated new light board for a high-pressure opening night only a few days away was a challenge she was ready to meet. Robyn went straight to the light board, mastered the cueing, and ran the board flawlessly for the theater's opening performance. In the next 25 years that followed, as Dallas Theater Center grew and prospered, Robyn was everywhere. As a lighting designer for more than 20 productions, as an actor in the theater's resident company for 20 years, as a director, choreographer, as the co-director of the theater's mime troupe, even as a member of the theater's finance committee. Meanwhile, another aspect of Robyn's artistry was growing as well, as an arts educator. Robyn has a gift for unlocking the creative potential inherent in each human being. She can introduce complex ideas and make them tangible for anyone. She can activate learners to express themselves fully. Rather than seeing the limitations of what a student brings into the room, she instead opens them to the possibilities that lie before them. For more than 60 years, there have been an awe-inspiring number of lost children who have found themselves because of Robyn Flatt. Throughout her 25 years at the Theater Center, Robyn taught creative movement at St. John's Episcopal, served as a member of Trinity University's faculty, led the Theater Center's graduate school in drama, and served as the director of DTC's citywide Theater in the Parks program. And then, everything came to a crashing halt. By the early 1980s, Robyn was at the height of her creative powers, but massive change was coming to the theater center. After the tempestuous departure of her father, Adrian Hall was hired as the new artistic director. He promptly fired the entire company of resident artists, shut down the theater's graduate training program, and closed the theater's productions for young audiences. Dallas Theater Center no longer had a children's theater program. Dallas no longer had a theater that centered children at its core. And Robyn no longer had an artistic home. A sensible person would have seen that the fates had turned against her and given up. A sensible person would have accepted that professional theaters nationwide were no longer committed to the idea of theater for young audiences. A sensible person would acknowledge that she had no money, no actors, and no theater building. But that person would not be the daughter of Kitty and Paul Baker. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. In 1984, Robyn started over and created a brand new theater. Dallas Children's Theater was born. Its mission to inspire young people to live creative and productive lives through the art of theater. Its vision, a world where young people, having been astonished, delighted, and challenged by the transformational experience of theater, are inspired to creatively contribute to the vibrancy of their communities. It was a galvanizing dream. Backed up by the support of the community and the dedication of artists and staff, Robyn wrote grants and raised money. She negotiated space for offices, performances, and shops. For the first 20 years, the Children's Theater performed at El Centro College. They performed at the Crescent Theater. For the theater's scene shop and costume storage, they moved from temporary location to temporary location. Some donated, some paid. Nomads, as theater artists have been throughout much of theatrical history. Even while children, families, and schools were coming in droves to the Children's Theater, Robyn was on a search for a theater building to call home. And in 2003, after years of tireless efforts from so many people who shared her dream, the new Rosewood Center for the Family Arts opened. The Children's Theater had its home. Throughout the 39 years of its history, more than 5.2 million audience members have experienced the artistry of Dallas Children's Theater. The theater has produced 388 productions, 75 of them directed by Robyn. For many more, she also served as the lighting designer. The theater established a national touring program that's traveled from coast to coast, even to China. They've supported the development of new works. They've upheld a deep commitment to racial equity, diversity, and inclusion through their programming, and they've inspired important conversations for teens and their families. And thus, Robyn's lifetime of work has resulted in two vital institutions that will nurture and inspire Dallasites for generations to come. Today, Dallas Theater Center continues to uphold Robyn's legacy through our company of resident artists, our commitment to supporting undergraduate and graduate theater training, and our dedication to acting, directing, and design of the highest caliber. Equally importantly, Dallas Children's Theater carries on Robyn's legacy by creating innovative professional productions for multi-generational audiences, developing programs that integrate the arts into the curriculum, and building bridges of understanding between generations and cultures. In isolation, neither of these two theaters could fully serve our community. But collectively, Dallas Theater Center and Dallas Children's Theater serve as two interconnected halves that inspire Dallas to become an ever more perfect union. Together, these theaters represent the pillars of Paul Baker's original vision. So this brings me back to where we started, opening night. But this time, it's 50 years later, 2009. Saturday night, October 24th, was the night of the first performance of the first play ever produced in Dallas Theater Center's brand new home, the D. and Charles Wyly Theater. The occasion was a celebration of the new, but it was also a homecoming of sorts. I had the great good fortune of directing an incredibly talented cast of actors with deep ties to the Dallas theater community. Robyn was in that cast. After many years in exile, she returned to the theater center to play Aegeus in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream that celebrated the folly, the inspiration, the joy of creating theater against impossible odds. At the end of the production, there was a dance party. The entire cast, and even the audience, joined together in celebration. My soul was lifted as I watched Robyn dancing alongside a new generation of Dallas Theater Center artists. A few hours later, in a hospital in Central Texas, Paul Bacon passed away. But his vision didn't die. It lives on because of the efforts of one of the most strong-willed and inspiring artists I have ever met. And her vision and the institutions she has inspired throughout these 6 decades will continue to live on as a living testament to her. The Linda and Bill Custard Award is the highest honor the Dallas Theater Center can bestow. I'm proud to introduce you to this year's recipient, whom I consider both a role model and a friend, Robyn Flatt.
Well, I have no secrets now. Kevin, you said you were going to say a few words. You know, he didn't tell me he was going to novel and tell it. Oh my goodness, my goodness. Well, it's such an incredible honor to receive this kind of recognition. In my mildest dreams, I could never have dreamt that this would happen, ever. So I just thank you, Kevin. I thank you, Bill and Linda Custard, for this lovely kind of award, the Warnickes, and I know there's a number of other people that might have participated in this selection. And it's very humbling and just amazing, not just for me, but for my family. They're all seated, many of them are seated right here in my daughter Christy and my son Eric, who were at an early age warped by the Dallas Theater Center because they had to attend a lot of classes and rehearsals and performances. And then later, I was warped by the Baylor Theater by my parents because they drug me down there all the time. And so I did it to my children. And now they have done it to their children via the Dallas Children's Theater. So we have a whole table of warped people over there who have been involved with theater for so many years. But I especially have to thank you, Kevin, for the incredibly generous move he made in 2007 when he drove went almost 300 miles south to visit a guy who lived close to Welder, Texas, to meet him and talk to him and just share the idea of Dallas Theater Center and what that meant. And for my father at that time, that was so very special. And I just want all of you to know how special that was also and meaningful to my sister Retta, my sister Sally, and to me. I don't know many people in the world that have gone to that effort to talk to the founder of a theater that they wanted to grow. So if we can quit crying now, we will move on. So there's really, as I said, no way to thank you. But I wanted to go back to a kind of an interesting moment in time, it seems to me. I want to go back to the May of 1960. And what was I doing in May of 1960? I was sitting in the Coliseum in Waco, Texas for my college graduation. Was I listening to the speech? No, I was not. I was looking at my lap and my script. I was memorizing my lines for Hamlet and Importance of Being Earnest and Under Milkwood. Because in just a few weeks, I was going to be on the Kalina Humphrey stage performing a third of Ophelia in Paul Baker's Crazy Hamlet, where there were 3 actors for each character. And I was going to be Gwendolyn in Importance of Being Earnest. And the amazing production that Burgess Meredith directed of Under Milkwood, I was having the opportunity to also step into that production. We played rolling rep. Anybody knows what that means? Rolling rep is lovely for the actors once everything is in place. But in those days, the actors also had to put everything in place. So we sometimes did 3 different shows in the same week. This was nuts. Finally, after several years of this insanity, they figured out that maybe we didn't have to do 3 different productions every week. And we came up with the idea you might just do 1 production, for a month and then another one. So then it got a little bit more sane. But I was overjoyed to have been part of the original resident artist company of the Dallas Theater Center. And we became a very tight-knit group because, as you can imagine, if we were moving scenery around and having to re-rehearse and remember the show we did 2 weeks ago all the time, well, we had to be very, tight-knit and understand and be very kind to each other. So it was exhilarating, but it was also exhausting. Now, in May of 1963, the Dallas Theater Center received an amazing invitation. There was such a very, very important festival that took place in Paris, France, called the Theater of Nations International Festival. The Dallas Theater Center's production of Faulkner's As I Lay Dying was chosen to come to perform. And in a way, it's a kind of a competition, not really, but sort of. And the Dallas Theater Center was the only American company that was invited to participate. Now, we were partnered with, there were other groups like from very fine companies from England, from Germany, from Scandinavia, and I guess all parts of the world. So it was a big decision the board had to make, and some of you in here would probably remember making that decision that yes, we should accept this invitation. So in the summer of 1964, we packed the wagon from Journey to Jefferson with all the props and things and shipped it over to Europe and began a 4-city tour. This was really, really incredible. We first performed at the Schauspielhaus Opera House in Frankfurt to an amazing space that was very, very technically perfect. And that when we designed the lights, there were people at every point where you could have an instrument. And you say, I want that one, and they do it. And I want that one. It was incredible. So we had a fabulous lighting there. And then we were going on to the Serge Bernhardt Theater in Paris. And the people in Frankfurt said, oh, you're going to have a terrible time. They're not going to work with you. This will be horrible. So we get to Paris, and sure enough, they were horrible. They told Randy Moore and I that we could not have the lighting plot. That was a major part of the production. And we said, so we reorganized our whole dadgum lighting plot and did it. And so we were looking there as trying to do the final focusing. And we're distraught because this fabulous, gorgeous textured drop that was really an actor in the play only had 2 lights on it. And about this time, Monsieur Martin, the lighting director there, came up and said, "Vous avez besoin d'un autre?" Yeah, you need another light? We said, dadgum, we do. And so he got us one. Vous avez besoin d'un autre? Oui. And we got another one. Finally, we got every single light we wanted back on that stage. And it was the best performance we had, and it was a gorgeous performance. It was a whole week of performances there at the Sarah Bernhardt Theater. And Dallas Theater Center, if I get the right name, Dallas Theater Center walked away with a special jury award. That was a big deal. And it really the acclaim we received on that tour really put the Dallas Theater Center on the international stage. And it was a major turning point in the life of the theater. So I do want to say a few words about the energy of a company. Why is it important to have a company? It's important for me as a performer, as an artist, to have a group of people that I understand and that I can work with. It's important to have that anchor underneath me, to be able to have an idea, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but it's not going to be the end of the world. It's important to be able to work on a project and not have to worry about 5 auditions that you might be missing down the street, because if you don't get a role in one of those shows, you're going to be starving the next month. But it builds an energy, it builds it provides a space in which an idea can grow, in which an idea can be nurtured, and it can eventually develop into its fullest shape. And you just can't, you can have it if you do it individually, but it's so much harder, and it's so much more beautiful when it can happen within the bounds of a company. So I thank you, the board of the Dallas Theater Center, for believing in the company for so many years, that gave me so much, so much. I mean, gave me everything that I've learned here, and that was very, very important to me. And I want to thank Kevin for restoring that kind of company with that kind of camaraderie. It's very, very important. So Kevin's already talked about the fact that the Children's Theater that we reached, I was invited to take on creating something for the parks. Sid Stahl and my father, Paul Baker, decided it would be a good idea for the theater center to also be out in the parks along with the symphony and the ballet. So, of course, nobody wanted that job, but I inherited it and couldn't fuss about it too much, because he said, "Girl, why can't you take that mime group of yours that you're teaching mime in those parks? Why can't you all just take that and put something together out there for the parks?" I said, "Well, okay, we will." And dadgummit, we did. We went to every park in the city of Dallas that had a recreation center for 7 years. Then we figured out that once we had that, why not go into the schools during the school year? And we can do that. Well, why not tour around the state of Texas? So we did all of that too. With our and then in the 1980s, we developed a bilingual Alice with designs from the fabulous Irene Corey. It was a stunning production. And that served thousands and thousands of people during the summer of 1980 when it was 115 degrees outside. We were performing outside, yes. So we were having a lot of wonderful work. We were also created a tour with the Scottish play, To Kill a Mockingbird, and The Miracle Worker, and Artie Eliason over there was in it. He can attest that we really did that. Thank you, Artie. And so that was 82, 83, and then as Kevin already told you, boom, life changed. And I was invited to leave, and I did. But I'm a little mad at you, but I'm not totally mad, because the training you gave me, the experiences you gave me, even the parks experience is what was the foundation for us starting the Dallas Children's Theater. And it just rolled right along. Very difficult the first several years. Our $500 that we started with didn't go very far. But, but somehow or other, by the grace of God and with the help of so many of my colleagues who had worked with me as company members, came and helped me get the theater, the Children's Theater going. And many of them still work with me, like Emily Jefferson out there. She and I did lights together in the early days of the Dallas Theater Center. So in conclusion, well, I just want to say first, so it's May now, it's May 2023. This is 63 years later, and there's another milestone. Next week, I'll be turning over my keys to the kingdom as I move into transition mode. Hopefully, continuing special projects as the theater welcomes a newly selected executive director. So we'll see. In conclusion, I feel it's vitally important for communities to embrace artists by providing them with a workspace in an environment where ideas can be planted, nurtured, and grown. We owe it to the generations of tomorrow, because it is the artists that lead us so often to discovery and problem solving. So thank you, Dallas Theater Center, for having the wisdom to create a theater family for so many of us during the DTC's first 25 years. And thank you, Kevin, for doing the same in more recent years. I feel a close kinship with the members of both companies, whether DTC or DCT. These people have been my support and encouragers throughout my 60+ years of theater activity in Dallas. These companies have allowed all of us to grow, to believe in the goodness of humankind, and provided a pathway for so many to discover their genius within. Thank you.